In this video, I'm gonna talk about No Man's Sky. Happy holidays to me. I wish to thank you, dear viewer to the singular, for sticking around throughout my learning experiences, my amateur experimentations, my chances taken, my mistakes made, and my messes gotten. I may be just another asshole with a mic on the internet, but I do take pleasure into every giggle that I can provoke, and as long as it keeps being fun, then I shall continue doing so. The only reason I had heard about this game was thanks to an apparently disastrous launch that came complete with Jurassic Park played on the recorder flute and countless hilarious submissions to the game physics subreddit. A couple years later, a talking beer pint on twitch.tv happened to be playing the game, and it seemed to be fixed well enough to warrant some legitimate attention. Next thing I knew, I was waking up on a planet made mostly of fire, my life support system was in the middle of exploding, and I had roughly 1 minute and 38 seconds to figure out the controls and pick some resources off the ground, or else I would fucking die. I managed to pass this first test comfortably enough, although I would not put that kind of stress on my grandpa as his introduction to video games. The fact that my grandpa is mostly made of ashes at the moment has only little to do with my assessment of how the experience would go for him. Once you have your spacesuit and your spaceship in order, you can at least take a breather and chill while you survey your situation. Right away, I can say that the hardest part is over, and everything beyond is all about smooth sailing, with the occasional bit of choppy waters to enjoy an odd thrill or two. Included in your starter kit is a surprisingly competent go-anywhere-do-anything spaceship, and a gun that also functions as your mining laser and your in-game mouse pointer for when you want to build something. The default is a third-person view, but you can always go first-person if the idea gives you that much of a hard-on. From this point on, pretty much everything is liable to be a falsehood despite all my honest attempts, because apparently this game has a knack for radically changing from one major update to the next. I can only hope that there is now enough stability in the design such as to make my statements still ring true well beyond December 2021. But only time will tell, and in the most throbbing of hard ways, of course. There is some base building, and it comes in two packages that are largely incompatible with each other. The first one involves space-age modules that snap together, and the second one is a more free-form layout of panels that allow for more organic flexibility. Each package has its own pros and cons depending on how you wish to fashion your outpost, and it is not much of a pressing issue unless you are trying to milk some of the mechanics for everything they got. Most of the basic resources can be found everywhere, but the more advanced components will require you to get into your spaceship and visit picturesque locations, including but not limited to Paradise, Snowball, Lava Reef, Chernobyl, Planet Vomit Color Scheme version 2.0, and whatever that bullshit happens to be. The environment may be more or less hostile, and while your basic spacesuit can handle anything and everything, certain upgrades will allow you to enjoy longer sorties before you need to seek shelter or recharge your protection modules. There are literally trillions of planets to explore, but as procedural generation goes, there is only so much that it can accomplish before everything looks the same, and whoever tells you that each planet is truly unique is telling the truth and also spewing out torrential loads of purified bullshit. It takes only a half-dozen solar systems to have seen all the major sites of the neighborhood, and everything past this is different only in the minor details. Combat is an occasional and necessary part of the adventure, but what is expected out of the player is nothing more than a handful of shots to dispatch all but the toughest of opponents, and you are built like the 300 warriors of Sparta if they had been made out of tanks. In most cases, you can stand perfectly still while you point your boomstick at whatever you dislike, and it ceases to exist within a couple clicks. There is not much way to describe the story without giving plenty of spoilers, but it basically starts off with you going on a rescue mission, and then shit happens. Dealing with the shit reveals more shit that happens, and the process repeats itself until the writers figured that there was enough shit going on to give you an existential crisis. As you go to places and meet people, you will receive the customary helping of side quests, which I recommend doing simply because they unlock crafting recipes that otherwise demand an investment of currency that can be a little tedious to acquire. That still leaves the question of the main currency, which is not exactly difficult to amass, but the sense of scale can become overwhelming at some point. See, a handful of basic components will run you $1,000. An uncraftable complex component will run you 50,000 a pop. An inventory upgrade starts at 5,000 per slot and then quickly runs up to 1 million per slot. A mobile fleet command freighter of any top-shelf persuasion will be somewhere north of 30 million, and a brand new spaceship is between 10 and 50 million, and that is before you purchase all the inventory upgrades. You will quickly realize that the quests handed out by the NPCs pay lower than minimum wage, and that making it big means either trading goods back and forth or becoming a factory of high-end components that you can sell for a stupidly high price on the market. Even that is going to demand some elbow grease, but by the time you get there, you will be accustomed to the mechanics well enough to figure your way to the top reasonably enough. You will soon entertain a few bases of operations to extract and process what you desire, a fleet to send out on expeditions and bring back valuable cargo, and a few personal NPCs who will hand out goodies every so often. Interestingly, several aspects of these activities are governed by real time, which means that you can fire off an activity and forget about it until you come back to it the next day. While your underlings are off making you some more pocket money, you can explore the galaxy to find new and interesting planets to name to your liking, scan as many creatures and plants and rocks as you can, and upload the result for some sweet, sweet currency. By the way, you get some cash for scanning new things on the spot, but you also get a helping of the secondary currency if you hit the menu and click the upload button on the planet registry. If you are like me, you will realize the existence of this button somewhere along the 27th hour of your playthrough. One of the more recent updates added abandoned freighters that you can explore for yet more rewards, but mostly for the pseudo-spooky atmosphere and the fact that you can only walk about as fast as a member of the Belmont family. It is probably one of the more immersive activities to do, although it is worth mentioning that the game is not in the business of truly scaring you, so this whole thing becomes a bit of a theme park ride after a few rounds. The spaceship controls will never be as butter smooth as Everspace, the crafting will never be as satisfying as Medieval Dynasty, the gunplay will never be as tight as Destiny 2, the bases will never be as personalized as Terraria, the sense of dread and isolation will never be as powerful as Metroid, and the town management interface will never be as deep as SimCity. Make peace with this immediately, and recognize that this experience is not meant to be the killer app of any particular genre. On the flip side of things, it also means that nothing ever gets too complicated, or hardcore, or involved, and it leaves time to simply exist and admire the scenery without any obligation to follow a timeline or keep up to date with one's skills or the latest meta. There is a multiplayer component, but it is focused on cooperation, and all that is required from the players is that they accomplish the objective of the season. How they get there and how long they take to do so is entirely their choice. This kind of shallowness extends to all of the offered content, but I do not want to say that this ocean is a mile wide and an inch deep. There is more thought put into everything beyond the bare minimum, but not so much that I am liable to forget everything after a couple weeks. I could leave this game alone for a year, pick it back up again, and have my bearings all set up and ready once more within a handful of minutes. Just as an off-the-cuff example, I put 125 hours into the game before I considered that I had done everything I wanted, and I put it away for a few months before I fired it up again to grab some extra footage. I went to the places I wanted to film, and it felt as if I had played the game just yesterday. There is no doubt that the art direction will be remembered for its idealistic space age inspiration, and it is refreshing to witness sci-fi that is actually shiny instead of gritty and crapsaccharine. Everything else can be regarded as a casual way of killing time as opposed to a ranked competitive way of killing time. Enjoyable on one's own, better with friends, drink in hand, and talking about everything and nothing at the same time. Whoever tries to get too deep has forgotten that their mistake was to dive rather than sprawl. In short, this game is a jacuzzi.